My name is Sophie Lambert. Some call me brilliant, others call me vindictive. I prefer to think of myself as precise, like the code I write. 9 years ago, I was just another software engineer with an idea too big for my tiny apartment in Denver. Today, I'm the woman who brought a tech empire to its knees with $11.99 and a forgotten contract clause. This is how I reclaimed what was mine. The night my microwave shorted out, I was hunched over my third cup of cold coffee, finalizing the authentication protocol for what would become TrustScale, a digital credibility assessment platform that analyzed user behavior patterns to determine trustworthiness. The apartment went dark, but my laptop battery held. In that strange blue glow, I finished the last line of code that would eventually be worth millions. Shit, I muttered, flipping the breaker back on. The microwave clock blinked 3:17 a.m. My ramen would stay cold tonight. That moment should have been anticlimactic, just another late night of coding. But standing there in my kitchen, watching the system compile successfully, I knew I'd created something significant. TrustScale could revolutionize how companies vetted their customers, partners, and even employees. I didn't realize then that I'd also created the thing that would both destroy and save me. For 3 months, I lived on savings and hope. My former roommate from college, Leah Chen Nguyen, everyone called her Leah Nguyen, joined as my first engineer. Marcus Okafor, a UX designer I'd worked with at my previous job, came aboard after seeing the prototype. We worked out of my one-bedroom apartment. Marcus slept on the couch. Leah took the air mattress. I kept the bedroom only because they insisted the founder needed proper rest. None of us got much sleep anyway. Our first investor meeting was at a coffee shop because we were too embarrassed to host potential funders in an apartment with 3 people's laundry hanging everywhere. I wore the only blazer I owned, navy blue with a coffee stain I'd tried to hide with a strategic notebook placement. Trent Wallace and Delia Sloan from Lunaris Solutions sat across from us, all polished surfaces and practiced smiles. Trent, with his precisely trimmed beard and MBA vocabulary, nodded appreciatively as I demoed the platform. Delia, whose LinkedIn profile described her as a digital brand evangelist, kept saying phrases like market disruptive potential and sentiment-forward solution space. "We love what you've built," Trent said after my presentation. "Lunaris wants to take this to the next level." "We don't just fund companies," Delia added, her manicured nails tapping on the table. "We elevate visions." They offered $2.5 million for 60% ownership. I countered with 40%. We settled on 51%. They would have majority control. But I'd remain as chief product architect with a significant voice in all decisions. The night before signing, my father called from his retirement home in Marseille. Papa had been a contract lawyer before his stroke 3 years earlier. "Sophie, ma chérie," he said in that voice that had grown softer since his illness. "Have them add a clause. If they fire you without cause, you can buy back the brand name and domain for a nominal fee within 30 days. "They wouldn't fire me, Papa. It's my product." "Indulge your old father, s'il te plaît." I added the clause. Lunaris's lawyers thought it was odd but harmless, just an emotional founder's security blanket. They limited it to a 30-day window and specified that I'd have to pay fair market value for the domain if it exceeded $100,000 in worth. I signed the papers in Lunaris's downtown office, officially selling TrustScale for $1 and the promise of venture backing. The champagne tasted like plastic, but I smiled for the photos. In those early days, everything seemed perfect. We moved into real offices, open concept, exposed brick, the startup dream. We grew from 3 to 15, then 30. Leah led our engineering team. Marcus built a UX department. I oversaw product development, working directly with our first enterprise clients. The money fueled our growth, but it also started diluting my vision. Trent, who'd been appointed CEO, began speaking in business school platitudes about strategic market alignment and value-forward reinvention. During board meetings, his eyes glazed over whenever I discussed technical architecture. Still, I thought we were partners. Delia's marketing team grew faster than engineering. Suddenly, our walls were covered with mood boards rather than system diagrams. Client meetings that once focused on technical capabilities now revolved around brand emotion journeys. We need to position TrustScale as not just secure, but seductive. Delia announced during a product review, "Security feels cold. We need to make data feel warm." Data isn't supposed to feel warm, I argued. Its reliability comes from its objectivity. That's very 2018 thinking. Sophie? She replied with a tight smile. The first real fracture appeared when Trent hired Jackson Porter as Chief Innovation Officer, a position I hadn't known existed until the company-wide email announcement. Jackson, with his Silicon Valley pedigree and TED Talk about disrupting disruption, was suddenly reviewing all my product decisions. "We need to pivot to a more sentiment-aware interface," he told me during his second week. "Your current approach is too mechanical." "It's a security product," I replied. "It's supposed to be precise, not emotional." "That's why we brought me in," he said, not unkindly, "to help modernize your thinking." Our original whiteboard, the one where I'd first sketched TrustScale's architecture back in my apartment, disappeared during an office redesign. "It looked dated," Delia explained when I asked about it. "We're refreshing our creative energy." One by one, the original team began to leave. Marcus quit after his entire UX roadmap was scrapped for Jackson's intuitive brand interaction framework. 3 senior engineers followed when their salary adjustment requests were denied, while Delia hired 5 new marketing associates. Leah stayed, loyal despite everything, but her concerns mirrored mine. "They're hollowing out the technical core," she whispered during a rare lunch where it was just the two of us. "It's all marketing gloss now." I still believed I could fix it. I prepared a comprehensive presentation for the board. Technical debt issues, customer feedback requesting stability over new features, revenue projections showing our core product strength. I practiced in front of my bathroom mirror for hours. The board meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. At 2:58, I received an email. "Strategy session postponed. A new date, TBD." That night, I discovered I'd been removed from several Slack channels. My calendar invites dwindled. The weekly product sync became monthly, then, as needed. Leah found me in the stairwell after a particularly frustrating non-meeting where Trent had spent the entire time on his phone. "They're planning layoffs," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Engineering is getting hit hard, and Sophie, your name is on their list." "How do you know this?" Jackson's assistant left her laptop open during lunch. I saw the spreadsheet. That night, I dug out my original contract from a filing cabinet in my basement. The clause was still there, buried in Section 27B. In the event of termination without cause, founder retains the right to purchase the brand name and associated digital assets at nominal value within 30 days, provided said assets have not been independently valued at over $100,000 USD. I photographed it with my phone and emailed it to myself with the subject line, "Insurance." 2 weeks later, a Zoom invitation appeared on my calendar. Strategic restructuring discussion. No agenda, no attachments. Scheduled for 4:45 p.m. on Friday. I knew before joining what was coming. Trent's face filled my screen, his expression a practiced blend of regret and resolution. Delia sat beside him, along with Vanessa from HR, whom I'd met exactly twice. "Sophie," Trent began, "first, I want to acknowledge your foundational contributions to TrustScale." "You were the original light," Delia added with rehearsed warmth. "However," Trent continued, "as we evolve toward a more market-integrated approach, we've had to make some difficult organizational decisions." I sat silently as they explained how my role had become redundant in the new structure, how they'd create a founder emeritus position I could list on my LinkedIn, how generous their severance package was compared to industry standards. "We'll need your laptop and access credentials by end of day," Vanessa said. "But please take whatever personal items you'd like from your office." "Of course," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'll drop everything off within the hour." Before disconnecting, I looked directly at Trent. "Just to confirm, This is termination without cause, correct? For the record. He hesitated, glancing at Vanessa. Yes, she said after an awkward pause. This is a strategic restructuring, not a performance-based termination. Thank you for clarifying, I replied and ended the call. I walked through the office one last time, past the nap pods and kombucha bar that had replaced our original engineering space. Most people avoided eye contact. A few whispered, "Good luck," or "I'm sorry," as I passed. Leah wasn't there. She'd called in sick that day, probably knowing what was coming. In my office, I collected the few personal items I cared about: a small potted succulent, a framed photo of our original team, and a USB drive containing my personal backup of key documents, including my original contract. I handed my laptop to Vanessa, signed the exit paperwork, and walked out without looking back. At home, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion and sat at my kitchen table. Not so different from the one where I'd written TrustScale's first lines of code years earlier. I plugged in the USB drive and reviewed the contract again, confirming what I already knew. Then I opened my browser and navigated to GoDaddy. Out of curiosity, I searched for TrustScale's domain, trustscale.com. The search returned an unexpected message. This domain is available for purchase. I stared at the screen, not comprehending at first. Then I remembered, during the last brand alignment, they'd changed our name to Lunaris Trust, then Lunaris Tech, claiming it better reflected our parent company integration. I'd fought it, arguing that TrustScale had brand recognition, but was overruled. I searched for lunaristech.com. This domain is available for purchase, $11.99 year. My hands froze over the keyboard. How was this possible? Then I remembered the corporate restructuring 3 months ago, when legal had been outsourced to a third-party firm. Someone had dropped the ball on domain renewals. I didn't hesitate. I entered my credit card information and purchased lunaristech.com for $11.99 years. Then, for good measure, I also bought lunaristrust.com, Lunaris Technologies.com, and several other variations. Next, I emailed Martin Zhao, the attorney who had helped draft my original contract. Martin, I've been terminated without cause from TrustScale, now Lunaris Tech. As per Section 27B of my founder's agreement, I'm exercising my right to purchase the brand name and associated digital assets. I've already secured the domain names, which were inexplicably available. Please advise on next steps. His response came within minutes. Send me the termination documentation. I'll prepare the formal notice. Do not make any public statements yet. I slept better that night than I had in months. Monday morning brought chaos I couldn't have anticipated. My phone exploded with notifications, texts, calls, emails. The first was from Leah. "What did you do? The entire system is down. Trent is having a meltdown. Call me." Then from Marcus, who'd left 6 months earlier. "Legendary move. Absolute legend." Even Jackson Porter. "We should talk. Privately. Name your terms." I ignored them all and called Martin instead. "It's already happening," he said, sounding impressed. When they tried to access their systems this morning, they discovered all their digital infrastructure is linked to the domains you now own. Email, website, client portal, everything. What happens next? They'll call their lawyers, who will call me. I've prepared our position. You exercised a contractual right after termination without cause. The domains were publicly available, showing negligence on their part. You're the rightful owner of the brand and associated assets as per your agreement. And if they fight it? They can try, but that contract was solid. Your father was very thorough. By noon, Trent himself called. I let it go to voicemail. His message sounded nothing like the composed CEO who had fired me 3 days earlier. "Sophie, we need to discuss this immediately. The entire company is at a standstill. Clients are panicking. Please call me back so we can resolve this situation professionally." I texted back one word: lawyers. That afternoon, Lunaris's legal team called an emergency meeting with Martin. I joined virtually from my living room, wearing a TrustScale t-shirt from our first company retreat. Their lead counsel, a stern woman named Eleanor Bishop, didn't waste time on pleasantries. This is corporate sabotage, and you know it. Martin calmly shared his screen, displaying my contract with Section 27B, highlighted. This is a founder exercising her contractual rights after being terminated without cause. The domains were publicly available due to your client's negligence. We'll take this to court, Eleanor threatened. You're welcome to try, Martin replied. But while litigation proceeds, Ms. Malsier, Lambert will remain the legal owner of these domains and associated intellectual property. How many days of system outage can Lunaris afford before clients start abandoning ship? The meeting ended without resolution, but I received an email from Trent an hour later requesting a private conversation. This time, I accepted. His face on my screen looked haggard. Sophie, let's be reasonable. What do you want? What do I want? I repeated, letting the question hang in the air. I want the company I built. That's not possible. The board is currently presiding over a company that has no functioning digital presence because you fired the wrong person. I think they might be open to creative solutions. You can't just... I already did. I interrupted. Now, here's what's going to happen. I'll transfer control of the domains back to Lunaris for $1, the same amount I received when I sold my company. In exchange, I want TrustScale spun off as an independent entity again, with me as CEO, retaining all original IP and client relationships. The board will never. Then I guess Lunaris Tech will continue to exist only in memory, since it certainly doesn't exist online anymore. It took 3 days of negotiations. 3 days during which Lunaris' stock dropped 17% and 4 major clients publicly announced they were reviewing their contracts due to security concerns. On Thursday morning, I signed new papers in the same conference room where I'd sold my company years earlier. This time, I was purchasing TrustScale back, all assets, IP, and client contracts, for the sum of $1. Lunaris would maintain a 15% non-controlling interest, but operational control was entirely mine. As part of the agreement, I'd restore their domain access immediately. I did so from my phone before leaving the building. Outside, Leah was waiting by her car. So, she asked. We're back in business, I said. Different building, same mission. Where do we start? We need office space, something close by, visible. She grinned. I might know a place. The space Leah found was perfect. A renovated warehouse directly across the street from Lunaris headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a clear view of their building, and vice versa. We signed a 3-year lease that afternoon. I named the new company Novalinks Labs, but we would continue using TrustScale as our product name. By Friday, I'd rehired Leah as CTO with significant equity. Marcus agreed to return as head of design. Word spread quickly. And by the end of the week, I had messages from 12 former employees asking if we were hiring. We were. Beth from accounting joined us Monday morning. Their books are a mess anyway, she said as she set up her desk by the window. All style, no substance. Jackson Porter surprised me by requesting a coffee meeting. I made a mistake, he admitted. I got caught up in the Lunaris culture. They're not builders, they're marketers pretending to be innovators. I didn't hire him, but I did listen to his insider information about which clients were most dissatisfied with the recent brand evolution. Within a month, we'd secured 3 major clients who'd formerly worked with TrustScale, Mars Lunaris. Within 3 months, that number grew to 11. We weren't just taking back our original business, we were growing beyond what we'd been before. Trent resigned from Lunaris 6 weeks after our domain incident. The press release cited personal reasons and new opportunities, but the industry gossip told a different story. Delia held on longer, rebranding herself on LinkedIn as a brand crisis management expert before eventually leaving to start her own consulting firm. The final act came 8 months later at the annual Tech Future conference in Austin. I hadn't planned to attend until receiving an unexpected call from the organizers. Our keynote speaker had to cancel last minute, something about a meditation retreat in Peru. We'd love to have you address the conference instead. The topic is Digital Resilience in an Age of Disruption. The irony wasn't lost on me. Standing at that podium, looking out at 5,000 faces, including several Lunaris executives who couldn't hide their discomfort, I felt a strange sense of completion. 9 years ago, I began. I sold my company for $1 and a promise. The promise wasn't kept, but something more valuable emerged from that broken agreement: wisdom. For 30 minutes, I shared the trust scale journey without naming Lunaris directly. I talked about technical integrity, about building versus marketing, about the value of owning your digital identity. In today's world, I concluded, your domain isn't just where your website lives, it's who you are. It's your reputation, your relationships, your entire business ecosystem. Never entrust it to someone who doesn't understand its true value. As I left the stage to thunderous applause, my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tried to access the old lunaris.com domain, which now redirected to a simple page with a message. What you undervalued is what I now own. Digital justice, delivered. Below that, in smaller text, was a link to Novalinks Labs' website and our current job openings. Some called it petty. Others called it brilliant marketing. I prefer to think of it as a reminder. In the digital world, the most important lines aren't always code. Sometimes they're the fine print in a contract that everyone else thought didn't matter. My name is Sophie Lambert. I lost my company once through trust. I reclaimed it through precision. And I'll never let anyone take it from me again. The only difference between justice and revenge is who gets to write the story. In this case, I own the domain where that story lives. Digital justice, indeed.